How many hours a day do you truly live in your desired state? Not visualize it, not think about it, not hope for it. Live in it. Be honest with yourself, really honest, because the answer to that one question explains everything. It explains every desire that arrived and every one that didn't. It explains why the thing you want has been sitting in the same place for months or years, stubbornly refusing to move. For most people, the honest answer is about an hour, maybe less. That golden window before sleep, when the scene is vivid and the feeling is real, when for one beautiful stretch of time you know your wish is done and you drift off inside it. And then morning comes, and within 5 minutes, sometimes less, it's gone. You reach for your phone. You feel the weight of the day. You remember what your bank balance looks like, what your body feels like, what your situation actually is. And just like that, you're back in the old state, back in the familiar, comfortable, suffocating arms of the very life you're trying to change. So you've given your desire 1 hour, and you've given your old reality 23. And then, this is the part that breaks my heart. You wonder why the manifestation isn't coming. Tonight we're going to fix that. Not with a new technique, not with a more powerful practice, but with a complete shift in how you hold your state, so that it stops being something you visit for an hour and becomes something you never leave. I'm going to show you how to stay in your assumption around the clock, not through exhausting effort, but through something far more natural. Let me show you how. Let me tell you something that reframes this entire subject. Your consciousness is not a light switch, off until you flip it on for your nightly practice, then off again until tomorrow. Your consciousness is always on, always running, always, in every waking moment and every sleeping one, producing your reality out of whatever you are being. Which means this: you are creating right now as you listen. You were creating this morning when you woke. You were creating over lunch, in the car, in every unremarkable moment of your ordinary day. And you will go on creating tonight at 3 in the morning, when you aren't thinking about any of this at all. The creative process never pauses to wait for your practice to begin. It doesn't stop while you're distracted. It doesn't take weekends off. It is always, without interruption, producing your world out of whatever assumption is dominant in your consciousness in that moment. So here is the only question that actually matters. What assumption is dominant in your consciousness most of the time? Not for one focused hour, most of the time. And for most people, if they're honest, the dominant assumption is simply their current circumstances, their present identity, the familiar grooves of thinking and feeling worn so deep over years that they run on their own, automatically, all day long. They assume their desire for 1 hour. They assume their circumstances for 23. And then they're shocked when the 23 wins. But of course it wins. It has to win, because your reality does not come from what you do for 60 focused minutes. It comes from what you are, most consistently. And if you are most consistently someone who doesn't yet have the thing, someone who wants it, works toward it, aches for it, then that is exactly what your world must keep reflecting back. Not because anything is cruel, because the law is precise, and it is faithful, and it is always keeping score of what you are being most of the time. Now I want to give you a picture that will make everything clearer, because it explains why your manifestations keep slipping away no matter how well you practice. There is a state your consciousness returns to automatically the moment you stop paying deliberate attention. Call it your default, your home base, the place your mind settles into whenever you're not actively holding it somewhere else. And for most people, the default is not the wish fulfilled, it's the familiar. It's the accumulated weight of everything they've believed and felt and told themselves for years. Think of it like a rubber band. During your practice, you stretch it. You pull your consciousness away from the center toward your desired state. And as long as you're actively pulling, you're there. It feels wonderful. But the moment your attention shifts, the moment life intrudes, or you get tired, or you simply stop holding it, the rubber band snaps straight back to center. and the center is still your old reality. That is why your desires aren't appearing. Not because your technique is flawed, not because you're visualizing wrong, but because your default state, the place you snap back to, is still the old life. You keep stretching toward the new and keep snapping back to the old over and over, and the old keeps winning because it's home. So here is the real work, and it's completely different from what most people are doing. The work is not to stretch the rubber band harder during your 1 hour of practice. The work is to move the center, to make the new state your default, to embed the wish fulfilled so deeply that when your attention drifts, and it will, it no longer drifts back to lack, it drifts back to having. That is what it means to never leave your desired state, not white-knuckling every hour in a state of exhausting vigilance, not anxiously policing every thought. It means relocating your home so that the wish fulfilled becomes your new normal, your new automatic, the place you rest by default. And everything I'm about to show you is how you do exactly that. Let's talk about your morning, because the morning is where most people lose the entire day before it has even begun. You wake from sleep, and for a few seconds the feeling is still there, that warm, settled certainty from the night before. Your conscious mind is still soft. The old patterns haven't fully reasserted themselves yet. The barriers are still down. Those first 30 to 60 seconds between sleep and full waking are a genuine gift, a window where the new state can slip in almost effortlessly. And most people throw it straight in the bin. They reach for the phone. Messages, news, notifications, the bank balance. They start mentally rehearsing the day's problems before their feet have even touched the floor. And in doing so, they hand the keys of their consciousness over to their circumstances before the day has even started. Here is what I want you to do instead. The moment you wake, before you move, before you reach for anything, before a single thought about the day ahead, simply be in your desired state for 60 seconds. Not visualize it, not think about it. Be it. Feel yourself as the person who already has what you desire. And let that identity settle over you, the way a warm blanket settles over you in sleep. Naturally, completely, without effort. You're not performing a technique. You're just recognizing what is already true. And then, this is the crucial part. You do not get out of bed to begin working toward your desire. You get out of bed as the person who already has it. That distinction sounds small. It is everything. Because when you rise working toward it, every step, every breath, every interaction is quietly saturated with wanting. And wanting is the assumption of absence. But when you rise as the one who already has it, you move through your whole day from a different frequency. Your posture is different. Your voice is different. Even the way you make your coffee is different. Not because you're performing, but because the assumption underneath everything has changed. That is how you set the tone for the entire day. Non-negotiable, rain or shine, inspired or exhausted. 60 seconds. That's all I'm asking. And those 60 seconds, repeated day after day, will slowly move your center. Now, as you move through your day, something is happening constantly that almost no one ever stops to examine. You are talking to yourself. Right now, even as you listen to me, there is a voice running in your head, commenting, judging, planning, worrying, remembering, a ceaseless inner conversation that runs from the moment you wake to the moment you fall asleep. And that conversation is, with total precision, setting your assumption in every single moment. For most people, that inner conversation sounds like this. I can't afford that. Why does this always happen to me? Nothing ever works out the way I want. I'm so tired of being alone. It's never enough. I'm never enough. Do you recognize it? Of course you do. And here's the trap. It doesn't feel like an assumption. It feels like being realistic. It feels like honesty. It feels like the sensible, grounded voice of someone who's simply learned to see things as they are. But that voice is the single loudest assumption machine you own. Every one of those statements is a state you're occupying. Every time you think, I can't afford that, You are, in that instant, being someone who cannot. And you do it hundreds of times a day, thousands, while your 1 hour of practice bravely tries to build the wish fulfilled, and your inner conversation quietly dismantles it, thought by thought, for the other 23. So this is what has to change. Your inner conversation must become the voice of the person who already has what you desire. Not forced, not screaming affirmations through gritted teeth. Just genuinely thinking from the new state instead of about the old one. When you see something you want, not "I can't afford that," but "I could have that." When something goes wrong, not "why me," but "this is working out, even if I can't see how yet." When you're alone, not "I'm so lonely," but "I am loved. I am never truly alone." This isn't pretending problems don't exist. It's choosing consciously and deliberately to think from your desired identity rather than your current circumstances. And yes, at first it takes vigilance. You'll catch yourself in the old conversation 100 times a day and have to turn it around. That catching and turning is the practice. It may be the most important practice I could ever give you. Because when your inner conversation finally shifts for good, your outer world has no choice but to follow. Now, I'm a practical person, and I know you cannot consciously monitor every single thought all day long. That would defeat the whole purpose. You'd be so busy policing your mind that you'd have nothing left for living. So instead, let me give you a simple system, deceptively simple and quietly powerful. A few times through your day, pause. You can tie it to natural moments, before a meal, on a break, whenever there's a seam in the day. It doesn't take 10 minutes. It doesn't even take one. Just a few seconds. And in that pause, ask yourself one question. Not what am I doing, not even how do I feel, but this. What state am I in right now? Whose consciousness am I operating from? The person who has my desire, or the person who's still wanting it? That's the whole check. And it does two things. If you've held your assumption, you acknowledge it. You feel it for a moment. You let it deepen and settle. You're rewarding the pattern you want to strengthen. And if you've drifted, and you will drift, everyone drifts, you simply return. No drama, no guilt, no spiral of self-criticism about how you always lose the state. Just a quiet matter of fact. I drifted, back to the state of having. Of course, it's done. And on you go. That's it. A handful of quiet check-ins across the day. Do this for a week and watch what happens. By the end of the first week, you'll start catching the drift on your own, without needing any prompt at all. Your consciousness will become self-aware, self-correcting. By the second week, the new state will begin to feel more natural than the old one. And before long, it won't feel like maintenance anymore. It'll just feel like you. This is one of the main tools that moves the center, not by force, but by gentle, repeated return. Now I have to walk you through the hardest part, the moment that trips up even the most dedicated, most sincere students of this work. Contradictory evidence. You're holding your assumption beautifully. Your mornings are solid. Your inner conversation is shifting. And then something happens. The bill arrives, larger than expected. The bank balance is lower than you thought. The call doesn't come. The results aren't what you hoped. And in that precise, knife-sharp moment of collision with contrary evidence, something old and powerful surges up from underneath. Panic, doubt, fear, the gravitational pull of the old state suddenly overwhelming, yanking you back so hard that all your practice feels like tissue paper. And most people in that moment give in. They react. They catastrophize. They abandon the assumption entirely and plunge into the fear, thrashing around in the evidence, telling themselves, "I knew it wasn't working." And with that one reaction, everything they've built quietly unravels. Now, I'm not going to tell you to pretend you don't see what you see. I'm not going to ask you to paste a smile over a real crisis. But I am going to tell you something that changes everything about that moment. What you're looking at is old data. Think it through. If consciousness creates reality, and it does, then what is appearing in your world right now is not your current assumption. It is the physical shadow of a past one. It is yesterday's consciousness, made solid and visible today. It is quite literally old news. The low balance is not your reality in consciousness. It's the echo of a state you used to occupy. The call that hasn't come is not evidence of failure. It's simply the delay between a shifted assumption and its arrival in form. So when the contradictory evidence appears, this is what you say, not as a performance, but as a genuine recognition of how reality actually works. I see this, I acknowledge it, and I choose to remain in my assumption anyway. You see it, you don't deny it, and you don't let it move you. Because here's what almost no one understands about that moment. It is not the world rejecting you, it is the depth of your assumption being tested. And every single time you hold your state in the face of contradiction, you send a signal to your creative consciousness more powerful than 10 visualization sessions. I know what is real, and what is real is my assumption. As your day closes, you have one last practice, and it matters more than most people realize. Before you sleep, review the day, not to judge yourself, not to catalog your failures, but simply to notice and reinforce. Ask yourself, where did I hold my state well today? Where did I drift, and what pulled me? When the evidence contradicted me, how did I respond? And acknowledge every win. Every single moment you caught yourself in the old state and chose to return is a victory. It's proof that the new pattern is growing stronger. So mark it, quietly and consciously. You're teaching yourself that this is working, and then gently and unhurriedly drift into sleep from inside the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Make it warm and vivid and real, and let it be the last thing in your awareness as you fall away. Because here is what most people never consider. The work does not stop when you fall asleep. Your deeper mind does not rest. It runs all night, always processing, always creating, and it works from whatever state you impressed upon it most deeply just before consciousness faded. When you fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that deeper mind spends the next several hours as a quiet creative engine, arranging and magnetizing circumstances to match that state. Hours of creation, while you simply rest. But the reverse is just as true. If you fall asleep worrying about money, that same engine works all night to justify the worry. If you fall asleep rehearsing loneliness, it labors to confirm it. It is entirely neutral. It simply builds from whatever you hand it last. So even sleep, even those unconscious hours, becomes part of never leaving your state. You are not taking a break from the wish fulfilled at night. You are deepening it, which means the threshold of sleep is one of the most powerful moments you have, and you get it every single day. Guard it. Don't hand it to the day's fears. Hand it to the life you're building. Now I have to free you from a belief that quietly defeats people because they hold themselves to an impossible standard and then give up when they can't meet it. They think never leaving your state means never once slipping, never drifting. Perfect, unbroken assumption, held flawlessly all day long. Let me tell you the truth. You will drift. Everyone drifts. The most advanced person you could imagine at this work still drifts. Drifting is not failure. Drifting is human. It is simply what happens when a mind that has run in old grooves for years brushes up against an old trigger. So drifting was never the thing that mattered. What matters, the only thing that matters, is what you do the moment you notice. Do you spiral? Do you catastrophize and tell yourself you're just not cut out for this, that it's hopeless, that it never works for you? Or do you simply, gently, without a shred of self-judgment, return? I drifted. Here I am. Back to the assumption. It's done. That return, that quiet, faithful, unjudging return to the desired state, that is the entire practice, distilled to its essence. Not never drifting, always returning. And here is why it works. Every return is a repetition, and repetition is how the center moves. Each time you leave the old state and come back to the new one, you wear the new groove a little deeper and let the old one fade a little more. Do it enough times, faithfully enough, gently enough, and eventually the new state becomes stronger than the drift. The pull toward having becomes stronger than the pull toward lack. So take all the pressure off perfection. You do not have to hold the state flawlessly. You only have to keep coming back to it. 1,000 small returns will remake you far more surely than one heroic white-knuckled day ever could. Never leaving your state doesn't mean never stepping away. It means always, always finding your way home. There are 2 phases to this work, and it's important you understand them so you know where you are and where you're going. In the first phase, you are someone who is practicing. You win the morning on purpose. You catch your inner conversation and turn it. You check your state through the day and return when you drift. You hold your assumption against the evidence. It takes effort. It takes vigilance. And that phase is necessary. Don't resent it. It's how the center moves. But if you persist, if you keep choosing the new state over the old, day after day, week after week, something begins to shift at a deeper level. You stop being someone who is practicing being abundant, and you simply are abundant. You stop maintaining the assumption of love, and you simply are loved. The state stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The new pattern grows stronger than the old one, until the new identity is more familiar, more natural, more you than the old one ever was. And at that tipping point, and you will feel it when it comes, like exhaling after holding your breath for years, staying in your state takes no effort at all, because you're no longer maintaining anything. You're just being yourself. And yourself is someone who already has what you once longed for. That is the real goal of all of this. Not flawless technique, not iron discipline held forever by willpower. A genuine, permanent, effortless shift in who you are. So here is my challenge to you. Not to try, not to hope, to commit. For the next 7 days, win the morning, guard your inner conversation, check your state, and return without drama. Hold steady when the evidence contradicts you, and fall asleep in the wish fulfilled. 7 days, fully, no exceptions. And I promise you, not as encouragement, but as law, that by day 7, something will be different. The new state will have more traction. The drifting will be less, and the returning faster. You'll have begun to move the center. Keep going, and one day the practice simply dissolves into being, and the manifestation is no longer coming. It's already here. So never leave your state, my friend. Move in for good, and come back different.